Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm live in the studio, so get involved in the comments and the chat. I'm going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United stories doing the rounds on the back pages this morning. Got a few stories to get through, so before we do so, make sure you are hitting that like button. Good to see the usual suspects and some new ones in there as well. Mick Holohan's in there, Heaven Soul's in there, Martin P's in there as well. Colin Coupleditch, good to see you as well. Steve M is in there. Jacoya Trot. Notch is in there. The Notchster. Good to see all you people in there. We missed you all on Wednesday night when we couldn't get in the chat. It was all a bit weird, wasn't it? Right, the main story, as you've probably seen, this is weird, right? Everyone's got this today. Like, I mean, everyone. We've got Mark Critchley there. I see Ducker's tweeted about it, done a story on it. The MEN have done a story on it. Everyone is talking about it. So why aren't we? Isn't that the name of a cause album? I forget. Or it might even be, is it the Cranberries? I forget. Anyway, the Athletics say Manchester United could pay as much as 15.9 million, 21.4 euros, in compensation to, in fact, is that euros or dollars? It's dollars, isn't it? The Athletic do that because obviously New York Times. To Ruben Amorim and his assistants following his dismissal as head coach. So a lot of this has come out. I think there's been a lot of noise around United's finances this week. We had that report, didn't we, earlier on in the week that profit is up, that United had a little bit of a profit, but you can see this is in the Mail, so same story, just sort of being posted everywhere basically. So there's a little bit more detail in this one than Mark Critchley's tweet. Obviously Mark Critchley's done a story on it. Critchley's a friend of the channel, but it's behind a paywall, so we've gone here with the Mail one, and it says Ruben Amorim and his coaching staff could receive a staggering 15.9 million in compensation from Manchester United after they were sacked last month. We know the sort of details. He was sacked on January the 5th after 40 months in charge at Old Trafford, with his 5 coaches also departing the club. Mail Sport revealed he walked away with a 10 million payoff after he was summoned to the club's Carrington training base, filing to the New York Stock Exchange on Thursday. So this is the update. This is why we're getting sort of this story when we kind of already knew a lot of this anyway, didn't we? We knew he was going to get a payout. We'll get into the sort of nuts and bolts of this in a minute, but we'll just read the rest of this and I'll get your thoughts. After he was summoned to the club's Carrington, I'm sorry, I read that bit. A filing on the New York Stock Exchange on Thursday revealed removing Amorim and his coaches could cost up to 15.9 million. The figure stated in the submission is a maximum number, with the exact amount to be determined by factors including whether Amorim lands another job within a certain time frame. Amorim's compensation package took the total cost of hiring and firing him to nearly 27 million quid. United bought out his contract at Sporting Lisbon in October 2024 for 8.3 million and paid another 900 grand so he could start work early. He signed a 6.5 million a year deal until June 2027, meaning his payoff for the remainder of his contract is around 10.5 or 10.05 million. The club had already splashed out 14.5 million following the sacking of Erik ten Hag and departure of sporting director Dan Ashworth. Should they be forced to compensate Amorim and his staff in full, it will take the total United have spent on sacking managers and executives to nearly 30 million in just 15 months. Now look, I understand that you have to pay people good money to come and work for Manchester United at that level. Like, if you're going to be a manager at Manchester United and you're going to try and get managers that are in demand or wanted elsewhere, or in Amorim's case was pretty happy in his job and wanted to see it out for the rest of the season at least, then I understand the idea that you've got to pay him sort of an incentive, you've got to pay the club something, you've got to do all those things. I'm not like amazed or sort of shocked when I see that a United manager is one of the better earning managers. I think the sad thing about this is the level of sort of mistakes we've made in hiring and firing managers over the last 2 years, or whatever it is, 18 months there, and throwing in Dan Ashworth into the mix as well. Because obviously the Erik ten Hag thing just got a bit weird and silly, didn't it? He wins the FA Cup. That's an opportunity, if you don't rate him, if you don't like him, to sort of say, right, thanks, but, you know, that's the end of that relationship. We finished 8th. That's not good enough. You've won the FA Cup. Well, there you go. That was a fan. I was quite happy to see him stay because I'm an emotional fan. And that day at Wembley was one of the best days I've had being a United fan. And I've seen us win 13 titles and 2 Champions Leagues and the rest of it. But it was so great beating Manchester City. that I, as a fan, I was like, yeah, fair enough, give him the job, let him stay on the job. But if you don't rate him, if you're interviewing other people, then maybe you've got to be a little bit more sort of objective around it. They obviously didn't rate Erik ten Hag because they were interviewing the likes of Thomas Tuchel and I think Thomas Frank as well, maybe one or two others. Maybe there was talk that maybe even De Zerbi had a chat with the club. I don't know how accurate that one is. Anyway, Ten Hag stays for another few months, gets sacked, gets a payoff. Ruben Amorim, as it's all been explained there, we want him. He doesn't want to come, I don't think, straight away. I think he wanted to see out the season at Sporting. They were doing very well. However, we pay him to come here early. We pay the club to get him early. In the meantime, while all this is going on, we've hired Dan Ashworth. We've had to pay compensation to Newcastle because he's in a contract there and they don't want to lose him. Then we end up sacking Dan Ashworth, and part of the reason we sack him, apparently according to reports, is because he didn't really rate Ruben Amorim or bring in Ruben Amorim, and others at the club, mainly Omar Barada, disagreed with that, so it felt like it became almost untenable. So he gets a payoff. Then you get to Ruben Amorim, and it was like after a year, he's entitled to a payoff. It gets to just after a year, I think 14 months, so a year and 2 months literally, and then he gets sacked. There's I don't know if you can call them conspiracy theories. There's some theories that maybe he wanted to get sacked so he could get that payout. That's why he had that meltdown at Ellen Road. I'm not going to get into all that. All I will say is it was obvious he had to go because the results were not really great, but you could argue he'd done enough to keep his job results-wise because we were in touching distance of the top four. It wasn't quite, I felt like, that's it, he's sackable now because of these results. I know a lot of draws at Old Trafford wasn't great, but I honestly thought he'd end up staying to the end of the season. Once he said what he said in that press conference, even the pre-match presser at Carrington before the game against Leeds, you could see something was going down there. And then once you start calling out the club, which is what he did, you're on hiding to nothing. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think they could have risked letting him do another press conference, let alone carry on managing the club. I think they were like, if he keeps on getting in front of the cameras, he's liable to say anything. So he has to go. He's got all his staff. They all go with him because he brought in an entire staff with him. So it's just the whole thing in it is a bit of a mess where you're paying out 30 million quid over 18 months for a manager, two managers, coaching staff, and a director of football. And after all that, you're in a situation where you've got another interim manager in. So it doesn't sort of give the impression of a well-oiled machine. Now, the flip side be, I'm going to get in some comments, is like, look, at least they're admitting when they make a mistake and sort of doing it relatively early, especially with Dan Ashworth. That was relatively early. But I think the whole Ten Hag thing and even the Amorim thing was a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. Just, it didn't smack me of a sort of an organisation that had a very good plan in place. And I hope they've learned from it. People always say, oh, you can't learn on the job at United. Of course you can. There's nothing on earth like running or managing Manchester United. So I hope they have learned from these mistakes. We'll see if they have. We'll see what happens in the next managerial appointment. They might not have. But yeah, a bit of a mess. And 30 million quid is sort of, that's kind of money where you go, well, that's a substantial amount, that, isn't it? That's not peanuts. I know you're going to pay top whack for managers nowadays, especially United, but as that whole sort of conversation, if it is the top end and it includes everyone else that's been sort of coming and going over the last 2 years, then yeah, it's something that you notice. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the way they've run things, about what's happened with Ten Hag, about what happened with Dan Ashworth, about Ruben Amorim and his coaching staff and the payout they're getting. Just, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I mean, there's a part of me that just wants to move on completely from Ruben Amorim, but it's only like, what was it, 2 months ago he got sacked, if that. So I don't think it's beyond the sort of pale to still talk about it. Boba says that's 1.5 million haircuts. Toad Kane says, thankfully, we gave him a short contract initially. Ivor Longshaft, very good, says 35 million in total to employ him. That's nothing compared to the 150 million he cost us missing out on Champions League and sponsorship. Yeah, last season United had a decent opportunity to get into the Champions League with the Europa League final. Obviously it didn't happen. We didn't get Champions League football. That's far more costly than any payout we could or we had to give to Ruben Amorim. Heaven Soul says, the way some fans go on, you think these amounts are coming out of their pay slips and bank accounts. I don't know what you mean by the way some fans go on, but I think it's right that some fans might look at this and go, not great, because I don't think it is, to be honest with you. It would have, Toad Kane says, it would have liked Thomas Frank and Ange. People are rarely happy. Here's one for you. Skittle says, am I the only one who thinks Ten Hag was done dirty and we should have kept him? That's an interesting one, that. Would we have been better off keeping Erik ten Hag? There's a question for you. Do you think if we'd have kept Erik ten Hag, we would have got Champions League football last season, or we would have qualified for the Champions League? Do you think we'd have done better than we did under Ruben Amorim? Let me know what you think. I mean, it's sort of a moot point because we didn't keep Erik ten Hag and Ruben Amorim's not here anymore. But it's a fair question. I don't mind that at all, and it's worth discussing. Boba makes a good point. 30 million on top of 1.3 billion in debt. Yeah, look, we can argue and quibble and discuss the amount of payout and the compensation that we've had to give to managers and directors of football and all the rest of it, but there's no, the elephant in the room is the Glazer ownership that has left us 1.3 billion in debt, and that is all because of them. And let's not forget, when they bought Manchester United with that leveraged buyout, they piled debt onto the club so that they could own Manchester United, and it's that bad that now there's a new rule that says no one else can do what the Glazers did in the Premier League. If you want to buy a club in the Premier League, you can't do what the Glazers did in terms of just throwing a load of debt at the club and putting it on the club. You can't do that anymore. It's like a Glazer rule because they know how egregious that was and they won't let anyone else do it. But it's too late for Manchester United because we've had, 21 years of it. So it just goes to show how Manchester United there have been absolutely had over. And yet the Glazers are the sort of the main issue when it comes to money, when it comes to debt, when it comes to anything. You can't ignore that. But you can still discuss what Ineos are doing and the decisions they're making, especially when it comes to the managers. There's a good point by Santa Notch. Now think of the players bought for Ten Hag. I don't think the transfers under Ten Hag, with hindsight, stand up to scrutiny. Lisandro Martinez, love him. I think you can argue Christian Eriksen did a good job, especially on a free, and was worth getting. Tyrone Malacia's very cheap, obviously, but then there's a few where you look at it and you go, Rasmus Højlund didn't really work out. Anthony, a bit of a disastrous signing, to be honest with you. They just massively overpaid for him. It's a shame because there was talk at one point it was getting him for 30-odd million, which I don't think would have had the narrative around him at all, and it would have been like 35 million players, probably not good enough, but it's not the end of the world. 80 million, and all of a sudden people are talking about him as the worst signing in Premier League history and all that sort of stuff because of the amount that he cost and the fact that he went so long without really doing much. So a lot of the signings under Erik ten Hag weren't great, and there was this sort of idea that it was all the same agency, was it SEG, whatever it was, and it was all sort of working together and getting the best deals for their clients rather than what's best for Manchester United Football Club. So the signings under Erik ten Hag, on the whole, I don't think were great. Some of them weren't his fault, by the way. There's no doubt in my mind that he didn't want Manuel Ugarte. He didn't want Manuel Ugarte. He didn't play him. And I don't think Manuel Ugarte's kind of worked out really, but there was a lot of signings that happened under Erik ten Hag that you think he would have been for, that didn't quite work out. There's some you might even argue the jury's out. You might go look at someone, I don't know, Mason Mount, for example. You could say he's had a good season so far. No, he's injured again. You could argue is there still a chance that he can do bits for Manchester United? I mean, he's still a Manchester United player, and there's no reason to think he won't. But I don't know. Let me know what you say. Let me know what you think. Steve M says Martinez, De Ligt, Euro. There you go. There's three. Though Euro didn't actually play for Ten Hag. He came in on his watch, didn't he? Didn't Euro? Yeah, because he got injured. Then he got injured. Is it pre-season? And then didn't play until Ten Hag was gone. It was a bit unfortunate. I'm not saying he would have saved his job or anything, but it was... it was a bit of a shambles for Erik ten Hag. There's nothing you can do, though. Kevin Credibly says, remember Anthony's 5-minute celebrations? I remember the one against Arsenal on his debut. Do you remember when he had the ball under his shirt, didn't he? He had that. He did the stat thing. It was like that. He did it all, didn't he? And I was loving it because the Arsenal fans were raging. And I thought, hey, we've got a player here. Do you know what I mean? Scored, was it 3 in his first 3 games or something? It might have been 4 in his first 4, I can't remember, but he did quite well when he first came in. And in that first season, there was some, decent performances and results. Obviously, we won a trophy, finished 3rd, but on the whole, I'm not going to try and defend the signing of Anthony or pretend it was worth doing, because it wasn't. Steve M says, if we brought Carrick in 2 weeks earlier instead of Fletcher, would we be in a title race right now? I don't know, I get your point. Would it have been those extra 2 points, or even if you'd have brought him in for the Leeds game, would it be an extra 4 points? I don't know. I kind of feel like that game against City was the right game for him to come into. It just felt like the stars all aligned, and it was like Maguire came back, and the lads from the AFCON came back, and the crowd was up for it, and it all just felt like, I don't know. I just can't get away from the idea that that was the perfect sort of game for him to come back to, and that performance was so good that anything else might not have worked out as well. So we'll never know, will we? Just you can speculate though. Yeah, Toad Kane says, can we appreciate, though, that we were 15th last year and we're now 4th? We could be like Spurs. Spurs are having one, aren't they? Spurs are actually flirting with relegation. That is a real worry for them. Can you imagine their wage bill in there? I know there's going to be provisions for it, but their wage bill in that stadium in the Championship, they're going to be in all sorts of misery if they go down. Talking of finances, let's talk about Kieran Maguire, our friend from the channel. So he's done a tweet. We're going to chat to him soon, hopefully. Says Manchester United have increased its overdraft facility to 400 million since the 31st of December 2025. Ruben Amorim sacking in 2026 has cost an immediate 6.3 million in writing off his amortization of contracts and 15.9 million potential payoff. So we know a bit about that anyway. And then there's this talk of this credit facility and that getting sort of us dipping into that a lot more. I don't want to get into all this too heavily because we are going to sort of hopefully speak to Kieran and get him to explain it all in layman's terms rather than me sort of doing some ham-fisted sort of financial expose. No one's going to listen to that. But yeah, we'll get him on and we'll get him to explain what's going on with Manchester United, where we're up to. He was on the Overlap one of the other day talking about City's charges as well, and we can ask him about that. Let's talk about Amorim Sangaré. Sorry, no, let's not. It's a different one. Forgive me. What are the chances? Yeah, I just saw that. Producer Harry does like notes and it just said Sangaré. I thought, oh yeah, it's the lad from Forest. No, it's not. Manchester United have been working on the signing of Lens midfielder Mamadou Sangaré. The club are specifically going for a box-to-box profile and he's the first option. The Reds will be willing to pay up to 35 million for the player this summer. This is coming from Touchline X. I don't know much about them, but we'll keep an eye on it. The point about this one is not even necessarily about this transfer or this story. We're going to get so many stories over the next month or so as we get towards the end of the season. United are going to go big in the summer window. We know that. Everyone knows that. There's going to be a lot of players leaving. There's going to be a lot of players coming in, especially if, fingers crossed, come on, we get Champions League football. We're going to need reinforcements and we're going to have a bit more dough because of that Champions League football as well to spend on reinforcements. So don't be surprised if United go big in the transfer window. We were talking about it on Off the Bar yesterday, me, Steve, Joe and Adam McCullough, and we were saying about how Manchester United could really end up going, quite big in the window. Let me know what you think. What do you reckon? Because it could be one of those, in it, where we're sort of we're spending like, I don't know, man, like really silly money on transfers. Like it could be a window where you're looking at Manchester United potentially getting like, I don't know, going like 250 million if we can do that. I mean, a lot of it may depend on how much we bring in from transfers. We've got Marcus Rashford, we've got Rasmus Højlund, one or two others as well. We might end up going out the exit door. We don't know what's going to happen with certain players, like I mentioned Mason Mount earlier. There's still these rumours as well, isn't there, about Bruno Fernandes, which I'm not really into. There's sort of the idea of Bruno Fernandes potentially leaving, but those rumours are still there. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about one of my favourite topics, Senne Lammens. Yep. Says here, interview with our mate Jamie Jackson. Senne Lammens stands tall amid the hurly-burly of United's war games. The Belgian goalkeeper has quickly won over the club's faithful, but admits adapting to Premier League's physicality has been a challenge. He's done really well, hasn't he, Senne Lammens? I like the way he carries himself. I like the fact that he's come in as a 23-year-old, 18 million quid. No one thought, really, that he was going to be thrown straight in, and I don't think anyone thought he'd be able to sort of have such a good start as he has done. But you've got to give him his flowers, man. He's been very, very good indeed. And he's had a chat with Jamie, I think, as well. And yeah, whenever I see an interview with him, I see him, the way he speaks, carries himself quite well. Everton was quite a tough one for him, wasn't it, at the Hill Dickinson. He was getting hammered with all those crosses, and James Tarkowski and a few others trying to sort of bully him, but he weren't having it. And we know, look, most goalkeepers are decent shot stoppers. I think nearly all goalkeepers fall into that mould, don't they? It's what they like distribution-wise and what they like handling crosses and commanding their area that often separates them, and how they are reading the game as well. And I think he ticks all those boxes. He's good with his feet. He reads the game really well. His positioning is very good. A lot of goalkeepers get caught out by that. He doesn't. commands his area, and he can deal with crosses. So, yeah, I've been massively impressed with Senne Lammens, and long may it continue, because at 23, it's a good chance that he could be United. We've all been well. He could be United's goalkeeper for the next 12 years. We'll get ahead of ourselves, but obviously, you know, goalkeepers tend to play into the sort of mid to late 30s. What was Van der Sar when he signed? Was about 35. So, yeah, we'll see. Sander Knox says, not surprised when 9 players tried to crowd him out at corners. That was unreal, that one. Corners have gone mental this season, haven't they? Does anyone else think they've just gone to a different level? Because I used to think corners were like, you used to get a little bit of hustle bustle. And I remember David De Gea used to struggle with it. But now it's just like the entire team just stands on the goalkeeper in a corner. It's mental. Let's talk about Premflix. So this is, excuse me, from The Athletic. The Premier League has finally decided to cut out the middleman by launching its own direct-to-consumer streaming channel in Singapore, a move that may signal the end of a decades-old broadcasting model. Dubbed Premflix when it was first mooted in 2020, Premier League Plus is a 6-year joint venture with an existing partner, StarHub. Is that StarHub? I thought it said something else Hub. And we'll start operating in the Southeast Asian Ireland state from the start of next season. Speaking at the Financial Times Business and Football Summit in London on Thursday, Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters said, we're going direct to consumer in partnership with StarHub, who have a lot of existing customers. It will be a new app that you can download on your smart TV or laptop. You'll be able to watch 380 games a season with lots of shoulder content and a 24/7 dedicated channel. It's quite handy, that, isn't it? Because if you get caught on Pornhub, you can just say, oh, I thought it was StarHub. I've done it again. Do you know what? Keep doing that. What am I like, eh? Never mind. Look, obviously that's going on in Singapore. Is it going to happen here in England? Are we going to see the Premier League one day move away from Sky Sports, TNT, Amazon Prime? It does do me heady now. Like, the games are on so many different platforms that you need to have all these different channels if you want to watch, if you just want to watch United. Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, and I think there's been some rumours and reports that the Premier League are looking into this and are one day going to have their own direct to consumer channel in this country. I don't know whether that's going to happen. It kind of makes sense, but then what are Sky going to do by it? What are TNT going to do by it? What are Amazon going to do by it? Are they just going to take that line down? I don't know. Worth keeping an eye on. Worth seeing what happens with the old Premflix. Toad Kane says, I don't mind this. I live in France and it's annoying to access PL. Brown Knight says StarHub has horrible coverage in Singapore, while Martin says drop the Saturday blackout, bring with the times, or move with the times, I think. Yeah, one thing, someone messaged me about a GoFundMe page. I've just shared that in the chat. It's a GoFundMe page for a little girl who's not well. So I think she's really ill, and it's helping her out with sort of palliative care, I think. So I've shared that in the chat if you can help out. So it's good to help out a good cause. I'm going to be back later on today. We've got the brew. Someone was asking as well, are we doing a preview? Yes, we're going to do a preview later on today. I think we should be hearing from Michael Carrick today, shouldn't we, for his press conference. So we'll probably record something after that, find out what he's got to say. We'll find out about the fitness of Lisandro Martinez. Is he going to be fit for the Crystal Palace game? There was also some talk that maybe Brian Mbeumo might have picked up a knock as well. So we'll get into all that. I'm Jay Motti. This has been the Paper Talk. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chat, and thanks for watching.